I'm Tanya Fox, and you're listening to Fox Talks Business Podcast. I started my career in the corporate world, but always played to my own tune and loved to think outside of the box. This didn't always serve me well with the bosses, so I made the decision to become an entrepreneur. And that little seed of entrepreneurial curiosity continued to grow as I branched out into retail, service, and franchise businesses. Now, I have been fortunate to have amazing successes in the last 2 decades, but they did not come without some really big failures and even bigger lessons learned. And that's why I started this podcast, not just to share the failures, but to show you how you can turn every failure into a success. We're going to hear from some amazing humans from around the world that are going to share their stories of the good, the bad, and the motivational entrepreneurial life has to offer. After all, life is too short to make all of the mistakes yourself, so why not learn from each other? And of course, we're going to have some fun, because as I always say, well, you know what? I'll tell you that at the end of the episode. So thank you so much for coming on the show today, EA. I'm really excited to chat with you today.
Thank you so much for having me on your show. And I just think Fox Talks Business is a great name for a podcast. And I just really consider it an honor to be on your show. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. So for those people who haven't been sort of stalking you on the internet like I have, give them a little bit of background, because you have quite a diverse story, but it's very interesting. So give us a little bit of background on who you are and how you got to where you are today.
Happy to do that. And I have to forewarn your listeners, I'd never say anything in 10 minutes if I can say it in 20. So they're forewarned.
They've been listening to me, so they're used to that.
They're good. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So yeah, they've been conditioned.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, I have to say that, and I like to share stories, sort of my background, only because there's lessons I learned woven in there that I genuinely hope and pray that they are a benefit to your listeners. And some of the things I learned by literally tripping over them and just listening to people so much smarter than me. So going all the way back, I'm in Michigan now. I lived in Michigan for the last 35 years, but 65 years old now. But I was born and raised in the Chicagoland area. And I lived in an area called Oak Brook, which Chicago has a lot of suburbs, and Oak Brook is one of them. And my father was a milkman. I mean, so it's pretty humble upbringing, if you will. Back then, at the ripe old age of 5, I would help him on his milk route, and milk came in glass jugs, glass containers, and there was a box outside everyone's house, and that was the milkman's box. And you know what was amazing, Tanya, is not one time everyone knew there was money in that box for the milkman, and not one time did anyone ever touch the money. Different times, right? And
yeah, definitely.
It's just extraordinary. There was always a note in there with some money, and then we delivered the milk to him. So then I would help my father at 5 a.m, and one of the things I remember him saying to me over and over again was, because he didn't punch a time clock, one-man operation, had his own route for this dairy called Twin Oaks Dairy, and and like I say, he'd get up at 3 a.m, and on the days I'd help him at 5 years old, I was up at 3 a.m. too. And he always said the same thing. He always said every time we were out working together, well, when we're done, we're done. And the point always was, let's get on with it. The sooner we get done, the sooner we're done with everything we need to get done, and then we can do whatever. And I think at some point that sort of drove home the whole self-starter thing to me. Just that, since he didn't go to a job, which usually stands for just over broke, as we all know. And, and watching him get up in the morning, and no one was looking over his shoulder saying, get up at 3 a.m, go deliver milk and, break these big sheets of ice. Cause back then only the 18 wheelers were refrigerated. So, there was these 6 foot, I'll never forget, these big sheets of ice, and this big ice pick he had to pull out, and he'd grab these big chunks of ice and throw them in his delivery truck, because that was the only way you kept the milk cold all day. So it was quite a bit different than today. I think back fondly of it for sure. But I remember how important that was to learn. Let's get on with it, and you don't need to have someone standing over you all the time. So at the ripe old age of 16, I took my first step into becoming successful, and decided that I would become a janitor. And I didn't mind doing that because business was always picking up. What? Anyway, so so here I was at 16 years old, and there was 2 extraordinary events that happened at that time in my life. And one was I was able to be bonded, which means insured, so that if my buffer as a janitor hit some big piece of equipment, the insurance company would cover it. That also allowed me to be in really expensive places and really expensive homes. And one of the homes I was in every single Wednesday, I was in cleaning this lady's house. The lady's name was June Martino. And it'll mean nothing to your listeners until I make the movie reference. There was a movie out a couple of years ago, still available on streaming and probably will for some time because it's actually a pretty good watch. The name of the movie is called The Founder. It's about McDonald's and Ray Kroc. And I can tell you because I lived in Oak Brook, which was where the world headquarters for McDonald's was for decades and decades. Later, it moved more recently, but I lived the McDonald's phenomenon. So I can tell you personally, the movie has a lot of Hollywood spin and drama, and Ray Kroc really wasn't that way. But, they try to make it interesting and spin the story.
Right.
But there was a lot of events that are, there are certain events that are acknowledged that did happen. And so in the movie, did you see the movie by any chance? Do you have a chance?
I haven't yet, but I did write it down.
Check it out. Yeah, check it out. It's called The Founder. And I'm sure many of your listeners probably have. In the movie, you will see Michael Keaton. He plays Ray Kroc. And he's constantly talking to someone outside of his office. And he's saying, June this, June this, June. That lady outside his office is the ladies whose house I cleaned every Wednesday.
Oh, okay.
That's June Martino. So when I met her, she had the third most controlling stock in McDonald's. She was an icon. At that point, everyone knew June Martino. I mean, she was just, she was like, third most controlling stock in McDonald's, right?
Right.
So, here's something that was very fascinating to me. For some reason, Tanya, and I don't know why, I had this erroneous thought in my mind. I don't know where it came from, but for some reason I thought, and maybe it was just a justification on my humble upbringing and why I wasn't rich or successful or anything else. But I always thought to be successful and rich, you had to be a jerk. You had to be me only oriented. You had to be self-oriented, me first. First one to say it's only business, which I hate that saying. I hate it. When I hear that, I walk. I don't even respond. I just walk because they just got through telling me they're going to screw me. They're just saying it up front, so why am I going to hang out for that? Let them do it. Right. So the thing that was astonishing, Tanya, was June was the exact polar opposite. She was so nice, so approachable. Here I am in this $1 million house. She's got a full-time maid and butler. The maid's name was Viola. I don't remember what the butler's name was, and I was in there to buff the floors with special buffing pad, clean the swimming pool, beautiful indoor swimming pool, and to clean the garage. By the way, loved cleaning the garage. Here's why. In order to clean the garage, I had to pull out the Rolls Royce. Okay? And here, so I could sit in a car that was worth 10 lifetimes of my income, right? And so I'm sitting in a Rolls Royce, and then at night I go home and I drive my Rolls Canardly, which basically rolls down one hill and can hardly make it up the next. So that was my Rolls Canardly. So I'm thinking, hey, wow, this is great. And the amazing thing was, she was so nice, so approachable, never condescending. In fact, if I was looking down buffing the floor and she walked through the room and saw me before I saw her, she would say hi first. I mean, just that, it was amazing to me. And I thought, man, what is it that she doesn't have like a superpower? She's not like the superhero and she's not like an alien. What's the deal here? I know. And I finally got it down to two things. One, she knew something I didn't know, or two, she was doing something I wasn't doing. All I knew is she's in $1 million mansion, full-time maid and butler, and I'm buffing her floor. So one day, I get all the courage a snot-nosed 16-year-old could muster up. And I had my special suit on, my name, light blue shirt, name over here, name of the company over here, the janitor garb. And I went up to her, and I'm literally going to ask June Martino a question as I'm shaking in my janitorial boots. And I went up to her and I said, okay, just sit. I'm going to ask June a question. So I said, hi, June. She turned to me, looked. She knew who I was because she saw me every Wednesday and always said hi. And I said, hi. And she said, hi. And I said, can I ask you a question? She said, sure. And I said, could you tell me about it? She said, well, what's that? And I said, well, the whole McDonald's thing. I'm not kidding, Tanya. She put her arm around me, brought me into the kitchen. I'd asked her in the morning, and the entire day told me the entire story from where she worked for Ray Kroc before he met the McDonald's brothers, which you will see in the movie. He was a milkshake mixer salesman, and she worked for him then. So you'll see that in the movie, and that's accurate, right? So that's the same lady, June Martino. So she starts the story there all the way through, meeting the brothers, every event, all the way up to us sitting in the kitchen all day long. She even has the maid and butler bringing us food in the kitchen so she can keep telling me the story. And I'm going, my God, this is crazy. This is June Martino, and she's talking to this kid. What I kept thinking, is there someone else here she's telling the story to? Why, the investment in time in me, and what's up with that? And so there is a part in the movie. When you see this part, think of me, because this was a pivotal point in my life because of what happened in the movie. She references in the movie a time, because she kept the book. She goes to Michael Keaton, Ray Kroc, and she says, we don't have any money. We're out of money. More money's going out to coming in. Zero money left. In the movie, that perpetuates a drama phone call to the brothers. They have an argument. Ray Kroc says, I need more money. Right? Well, she tells me this story decades before the movie came out. Didn't happen the same way as in the movie, but for the most part, the event did happen. And so she tells me that Ray and her made an agreement that she would work for him for no money. She would continue working, not get paid. He would pay her in worth less than zero company stock, and agree to take some of the bill collector phone calls from her, if they were hounding her for money or something. So I just asked her, June, I'm a janitor. I work Friday to Friday, paycheck to paycheck. If I don't get paid on Friday, I'm not showing on Saturday. I need that paycheck. Why did you do it? Tanya, this woman sat back. I'll never forget. She sat back in her chair and did this eye lock on me and left the room. I mean, mentally, I could tell I had just asked her a question no one had ever asked her before. Everyone always wanted to know what happened. No one ever asked why. So when I said, why'd you do it? She truthfully sat back and went into the recesses of her mind, wanting to answer that question. When she spoke, it made the hair stand up on the back of my neck. I'll never forget what she said, the way she said it, and my immediate thought instantly right after. When I said, June, why'd you work for nothing? No pay, no income, get worth less than zero stock in a company. So you're getting less and less each day. Why'd you do it? She said, because I believed in Ray. And my first thought, Tanya, instantly was, that's it. I need to find me a Ray Kroc. Because it certainly didn't work out bad for her. I mean, I'm cleaning this $1 million house, and it's $1 million when I was 16 years old, and I'm 65 now. So who knows what it's worth in this area called Ginger Creek, which was also Oak Brook, but very exclusive homes. And so I'm thinking, that's it. I need a Ray Kroc. Someone that could put me under their wing. I don't even know what I don't know. I just know I don't know it. That's all I know. I don't know it. So I remember inadvertently, truly by mistake, I stumbled over the right question, and I simply threw it out there and said, where's my Ray Kroc? Where would I meet my Ray Kroc at? Now, I didn't know at that point, as my mentor taught me later on, the importance of asking the right questions in life. He said, and as he was teaching me, he said, everyone wants to know the answers. Everyone's focused on the answers. Teach me the answer. What's the answer? How do I get it? What that? He said, backwards. He said, these people live backwards. He said, it's not about the answers. The answers are omnipresent. They're always there and always will be there. Our lives become self-fulfilling prophecies. He said, we need to focus more in life on asking the right question. When we ask the right question, the right answer will always show up. It always does. And so inadvertently, Tanya, I inadvertently asked the right question. It was out of impetuousness and true ignorance. I just generally didn't know. Wasn't 3 or 4 months later, same janitorial service, event number 2 that was earth-changing for me anyway. Got a phone call at the office. I'm talking with the boss, Jerry, Addison, Illinois, where the janitorial service was, another suburb of Chicago. Chicago's got a lot of suburbs. And and it was after hours, after dinner time. I had already punched out in the time clock, and he was a friend of the family. So I'm just talking with him. Phone call comes in the office. He talks for a few minutes, hangs up the phone. He said, well, that was some guy from Detroit, and they're opening a diamond store, and they're doing a whole rebuild. He wants to see some carpeting for the diamond store. he needs to see it tonight because he's leaving on a plane back to Detroit tomorrow. I said, okay, what's that got to do with me? He said, well, I need you to go. I said, Jerry, I'm not going. Now we're going to count how many times I say no. So I said, Jerry, I'm not going. He said, man, I need you to go. Yeah, I mean, I need you to go. He needs to see this carpeting and he needs an estimate. I said, Jerry, no, I'm not going. You know, I don't know how to bid a carpet job. I can clean it. I can clean carpet. I can shampoo it. I don't know how to bid it. I don't know how to do an estimate. No, I'm not going. Right. So the second time formally I've said no. He said, I'll tell you what, if you go, I'll give you your pick of any Saturday off you want. Now, for a janitor, that's a huge negotiation shift because we clean when businesses are closed. So Saturday morning till night, we clean. So I wanted to make sure he wasn't tricking my ears. So I repeated it back and I said, any Saturday I want off? And he said, yeah, any Saturday off. So at this point, I'd actually formally said no 3 times. I open up the back of my Rolls Canardly and I'm throwing the carpet samples in the car. And so setting the stage for your listeners, I'm getting ready to go and I don't want to do this. I'm physically tired. I've been cleaning all day long. I've said no to that. I'm getting ready to do something I've never done before that I don't want to do, give a carpet estimate. So I've said no to that. And I'm not doing it for my boss, and I'm not meet a guy from Detroit. Seriously, you got to be kidding me. Who do I want to meet from Detroit, right? And so I have all these 3 no's formally. I have every reason in my mind I've given myself not to do this. Little do I know, I'm getting ready to meet the man that will change the trajectory of my life forever. The man that will become my father, even though I never had, even though I had a father, and I will become the son he never had, even though he had a son. My Ray Kroc. I'm getting ready to meet him, and I've already said no 3 times. And here I am getting exactly what I asked for. So I go in and meet this guy. Tanya, have you ever had the thing or the event where when you first met someone, you're so comfortable with them, it's eerie in how you felt like you've maybe already known them before? Have you ever had that kind of?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, you're just so comfortable. I mean, it's inexplicable. Besides that, you can't explain it. And so there was this comfort level with this guy, and we're talking about everything for a couple of hours. The carpeting was a no sale. He wanted something real plush for a diamond store, and we just had commercial office grade kind of stuff. And we talked for a couple of hours, and I start throwing the samples back in my Rolls Canardly to leave. By the way, it's middle of the night now because the phone call came into our office after dinner time. So, we're mid-evening now, night time, right? And so he offers me a job. And I said, no, this is number 4. I said, no, man, I didn't know anything about diamonds. He said, I'll teach you. And I said, man, I don't know anything about diamonds. All I know is they're really expensive. Someday a woman's going to ask me for one. That's all I know about diamonds. I don't know anything else, right? And he goes, well, he said, well, come on, you work for me. I'll teach you. I said, no. Now I've said no 5 times so far. And as I'm walking out the door, he hooks me. He hooks me with a statement that I didn't realize at that point, Tanya. I was talking to a gentleman that was a puritanical genius, not the IQ BS kind of genius. I don't believe in the IQ kind of thing. I've met a lot of educated idiots in my life. All the book information, they can throw it at you. 0 application execution skills, right?
Yeah.
So all this education, no wisdom. Right? I didn't know I was talking to someone truly puritanically wise. He knew what he was about ready to say would get my goat. So as I'm walking out, I remember the way he said it. He said, what do you have to lose? You could always go back being a janitor. I thought, no, I'm all set. People always make mess. I can always clean it up. I can get a job anywhere. Now, formally 6 times I've said no, and I leave. So as I'm driving home, it's starting to get to me. I'm thinking, you know what? He's right. But I could get a job being a janitor anywhere. And what does he mean by that? I got nothing to lose. What's all that? So about halfway home, it's almost midnight now, Tanya. And I turn around and go, you know what? I'm going to find out exactly what he meant by that. So, I'm actually almost miffed. And I turn around, I think, he's already gone, going back to Detroit the next morning. Nope, he's still there. So for the next 4 months, I got in the car at Friday night, 4:30 in the morning, Friday night, Saturday morning, drove 301 miles, which was 6 hours from Chicago to Detroit, met with him for 6 hours, got back in the car and drove back home 301 miles every single weekend for 4 months in a row. And I never missed a weekend in the heart of winter, all because I knew he had what I wanted. I knew he was rich and happy, which, by the way, I didn't even know then I had that backwards. We should be actually happy first and then rich. And, but at 16 years old, I'm about the money, right? I mean, that's it. I just want to trade in my Rolls Canardly for a real Rolls, right? So, and so.
Or at least one that can go up the hill.
Yeah. Not even hardly, no sputtering, make it all the way. I don't have to floor the gas, into the engine, so, I mean, so at 19 years old now, I finally asked Sam Robbins was my mentor's name. And I asked him, I said, Sam, will you teach me everything? And I mean, everything. Don't hold back. I want to know it all. He said, okay, I will. But I want one thing from you. And I want to let you know whatever he said next, I'm 100% in yes mode, right? No matter what he says, I'm going to say yes. And I said, okay, what? And he said, this is what I want from you. He said, when the time is right, and you will know that time, I want you to teach as many other people as you possibly can everything that I teach you. And I said, okay. So at 19 years old, I made a vow. I made an oath. I made a commitment to my mentor that now is manifest as what we know as Givers University. So that's the experience. And I can share with your listeners, if you don't have a mentor, if you don't have a mentor, get one. It's so critical. Be discerning in who your mentor is. Make sure they're a mentor that has done it, not someone who's an educated idiot. Make sure they have the wisdom and the application skills and can prove it to you. If not, you need to get another mentor. But when you get the mentor, listen to them. And I was very blessed at an early age. And I can share with you, it was just, Tanya, it was just ignorance on my part. I just threw that question out there. And 2 or 3 months later, here's my Ray Kroc. And he became that man. And I listened to him. And I funneled all of that stuff that he taught me, because I didn't make up any of this stuff. None of it was all taught to me. And I was just, if anything, I had the ability, Tanya, to say in a humbling way, I don't know. Could you teach me about that? I'd like to learn it. And I think today, maybe you'll agree, people are so caught up in having to be the smartest person in the room and having to know all the answers. And I got to look so smart, and I've got to be the one. And my business mentor used to drill in me all the time. Do you know what the smallest package in the world is? One all wrapped up in itself. And he would always drill these phrases into me that would just, they would stick with. And he said, don't be afraid to humble yourself and say, that's really interesting. I don't know about that. Could you teach me about it? And so that allowed me to be a sponge and learn from people so much smarter than me, that knew so much more, that did those two things that I identified with Jude Martino. They knew something I didn't know, or they were doing something I wasn't doing. And those things helped me along to have great success at early ages in my life, as money came in and left my life through my own impetuousness, came in and left, as it normally does, as the ebbs and tides of life, if you will. And so I was very, very fortunate with that. So I share with your listeners, listen to Fox Talks Business. It's a form of mentoring. Tanya's bringing you mentoring, and she's bringing you ways to listen from great guests. And it's such an easy mode, because, with podcasting today, man, it's what a beautiful thing to be able to gather information and share with others. Where before, I'm driving 12 hours in a day, 6 hours one way and 6 hours another way, just to have a 6-hour conversation with someone, and here you can just, I can be in 4 countries in one day, so it's extraordinary. So that was how Givers University came about.
Yeah, I love that. And I love what you said about, saying, I don't know, because that was one thing that, that my dad always drilled into me, is saying, I don't know is good, but you always have to follow it up with either I'll find out, or like you said, can you teach me? Can you can you explain to me why? And that's always been sort of my philosophy too, is that, there's no such thing as a stupid question except for the one that you don't ask.
Exactly.
And that was something that, people always go, how could you talk to that person? I was like, I don't know. I just had a question. But I think people get worried and they get concerned, and they get all within their head of like, well, I can't ask that person that question. And I'm like, why not? Like, it's, the worst that's going to happen is that they're not going to answer you. But I mean, like, at least you ask the question.
And they're coming from a place of fear because they're wondering, oh, what's that person going to think of me? Or won't I look good because I do that? And those things are so self-sabotaging. And
yeah.
And then another blessing that I was fortunate to have, that in a 2-year time period, I had my own radio talk show, and I interviewed over 1,000 millionaires in 2 years. And I was able to ask them questions off the air, which were so great. And I can share with your listeners, there were serious commonalities. These are over 1,000 people who were all millionaires, right? And there was interesting commonalities that I was able to discern out of all of this. Number one, they all had the story, not some of them, not a few of them, all of them had a story of a time in their life where everything told them and everyone told them to stop. Their family said stop, business said stop, finances said stop, economy said stop, political things said stop. They had every reason. And all of them had that story, which to me was interesting. And they all had the next part. And some of them, this is what was really weird, Tanya. Now these are people didn't know each other, different industries. It was over a 2-year time period. They never knew each other. Yet some of them even used weirdly similar wording when they said the next thing I'm going to share with you. They said when they were at that point in their life when everything said to stop, they took the next step out of curiosity to see what else could go wrong and had they missed anything. You know what? I mean, it was like a morbid curiosity. Is there anything I possibly missed that could go wrong? What would it be? I'm just curious to see what that is, because I think I hit everything. And they all had that time. And it was weird how they even used the same references. And then they said, again, the next thing was the same. Weirdly, the similarities were astounding to me. They said when they took that next step, when everything told them not to, it was like temporary defeat left their life. It exited. And it like it said, okay, this guy or gal, they don't know when to stop. They don't know when to quit. I'm just going to go goof up someone else's life because it's going to be easier. And they said, then things started to sort of gel and come together and connect almost effortlessly. And some even said, even in spite of me, because I was still making the same mistakes and it was starting to work out okay. And I thought that was really fascinating to me. Then I tagged that on to what my business mentor had taught me. And this is one of the things he drilled in me. Every, not some, every adversity in life carries with it the seeds of equal or greater benefit. And he said, as leaders, what we have to do is, our job is to move aside those leaves and look for those seeds. He said, get rid of the word failure. It's the ultimate F-bomb. He said, because failure sounds, and we relate to it as something more eternal. He said, supplant the word failure with temporary defeat. He said, because you're going to get tackled. You're going to get tackled thousands of times. He said, but when you stand up, by reframing it in your mind as a temporary defeat instead of failure, he said, you just realize when you stand up after you got tackled, you got a first down. You're still in the game. He said, when you say failure, you're throwing yourself out of the game. Stay in the game. And he said, when you see these temporary defeats, when we really begin to understand that not some, every single adversity we run into will have those seeds of an equal or greater benefit. Now, when we learn to more quickly move those leaves aside, locate those seeds, we'll realize those are the things we needed to get to the next step. Now, the next part is going to bake the noodles of some of your listeners when I say this. They will say this EA character is off his rocker. He taught me the following. He said, when we really understand the role, when impetuousness begins to get transformed into wisdom in our life, and we begin to understand the role of temporary defeat and the role of those seeds that are hidden between under the leaves that we got to move aside, we will then begin to recognize the following. We will begin to welcome and embrace temporary defeat in our life. Now that sounds crazy. You say, why in the world would I ever welcome that? Because every time we get one of those, more seeds showed up, more seeds showed up. And with our ability to not come from a place of fear, because we're in it all the way, and moving aside those leaves and finding those new seeds. My business mentor said, when you go up to the next stairs and their next steps towards greater prosperity and greater fulfillment and greater wisdom, he said, as you move aside those leaves faster and faster and find those seeds, he said, you will not walk up those stairs. He said, you'll get into a flat run. He said, and you'll be doing something most people won't do. They're all governed by fear, and they're afraid of what people will say. They're afraid of how it's going to look. And he said, backwards. He said, get on with it. He said, the best thing you can do is have as many temporary defeats as you can, because you're getting blessed with more and more seeds all the time. So as weird as that sounds, I hope your listeners ponder that thought, because the more we embrace it and welcome it, we no longer fear it, and we can move faster and faster towards where we need. The seeds are what we needed to get to the next step up. It's a blessing. And he just drilled these things into me, and they had a significant impact on me in my life.
Yeah. And you know what? I think I love everything that you said. Because I totally agree with you. I've never looked at failures and I've had quite a few, as a bad thing. It was always, when I sit down and I really look back and I realized there was two things that was happening. Either my ego was getting too big and failure or defeat happened, which brought me back and realized I still need to learn. And I was getting stuck in, I know it all, right? The job became too easy. What I was doing was becoming more robotic. But to me, that moment is always a moment that is almost refreshing, because it's like, ooh, how do I solve this? How do I get past this? Now they become learning experiences. So I agree with you. And it's so much more fun to look at them as exciting. Like, how am I going to get myself out of this one?
Right.
But it's a fun thing to try to figure out, because I've dug myself some doozy holes, but it's fun to get out of them.
Yeah. Well, I've dug myself some holes where I was convinced I need to learn Chinese. I was down there, but those are great, because then the seeds usually are bigger. That's what's astonishing. There also is a proportional kind of part that happens too, as the temporary defeat becomes greater. And I've had 3 huge ones in my life, massive, that the seeds that go with those are in direct proportion blessings to the extent of the temporary defeat. And we can begin to see these things, and we watch them in our lives. And what happens is we don't come from a place of fear. Then we start to realize that, hey, if someone doesn't like what I say, that's their problem. It's not mine. I don't have to think about, what am I going to say? I don't want to, and the snowflakes that are all out today, you can't say anything to me because you're going to hurt my feelings.
What other people think of you is none of your business. That's
and I think I'd be better off not knowing in most instances anyway. So,
I would agree with you.
Yeah, I tell. Oh, thanks for jumping in on that. Anyway, so yeah. Oh, that's great. So, and all of this became all this 1,000 millionaires I was blessed to interview, and all my business mentor, that really sort of sifts down to what ultimately became the foundation courses and what we teach in Givers University. We have a series of 3 courses, and they're called Give to Be Great. That's the name of the series. The first one's called the Giver's Mindset. Second is called the Giver's Lifestyle. And third is called the Giver's Lifelong Learning. And those are 3 courses, online courses that we have. And to edify really for your listeners, what we teach at Givers University and how all of this came about, if you will, and manifested from this vow I made at 19 years old, I share with your listeners, and I ask them to do 3 things. Number 1, think about the fires that you stomp out each day. Think about the times when your stress level spikes and goes straight through the roof. Think about when you have conversations with someone or certain people, and then at the end of the conversation, you don't even remember what the conversation was anymore, but you do know one thing: you have no energy left. They just drained it all from you, right? All three of those things, all three of those things have one thing in common. They all have a name attached to them. So what do we do at Givers University? We teach something that I can share with you doing 1 to 3 interviews a day. No one else is teaching this. And it's so critical and so vital with all of our lives today. We teach people how to discern in their relationships. Example. First, I want to say to your listeners, emphatically, we love everybody. I repeat it. We love everybody. And we teach how to discern or separate the person who we love from their deeds, which we may not love. And to actually look at the actual deeds at a very granular level, not innocuous, swaths of information that say, wow, that sounded so good. Oh, what do I do with that now? Very granular, detailed. These are the actual deeds we should look at and observe and discern. And when we see these things, start to discern, should I bring them closer into my life and become a part of my giver community? Because givers bring with them the 3 W's of givers: wisdom, wealth, and wellness. Or by contrast, when I see these certain deeds, should I begin to respectfully distance myself, not rude or insensitive or nasty, respectfully distance myself? Because when I bring them closer into my life, takers bring with them the 3 D's of takers, which is defeatism, disruption, and destruction. And when I bring them in closer, they're going to make me collateral damage. And I'm going to be stomping out fires, not of my making. And my productivity goes down when I'm stomping out a fire instead of producing results. My stress level goes up instead of down because I have the wrong people around me. We're in a world today, businesses opening and closing faster than ever before. Products being antiquated overnight by new products. What do we have left? Our relationships. And no one's teaching us how do we discern in these relationships. I'm a self-improvement geek. I love it. I know you are too. I'm positive you are. I'm sure many of your listeners are. But it's not teaching. No one's teaching us today, Tanya. How about the other guy? What if he's not doing it right? What should I do about that? And how will that impact my life? Because what will impact our lives more than the people we're around, the people we're with, or the people we associate with, the people we do business with, the people we're around every day. So we teach people discern. We even teach actual genuine checklists. Look for these deeds. So when we say giver, we're not labeling a person. We don't label people. We're labeling their deeds, giver deeds. When we say taker, we're not labeling a person. We're labeling the deeds of a taker. And so we teach people how to discern in these relationships. As an example, if right now, if I was looking at you and I could see your eyes are itchy, your nose is a little running. Okay, from those symptoms, I could discern you may have a cold. I'm not able to see the cold. The cold is the cause. But I can discern that by observing the symptoms. Supplant the symptoms with deeds. We teach people, look at the symptoms, look at these deeds, observe them doing these actual things. And then from that, you can now begin to discern, should I bring them in closer? Or should I respectfully distance myself because they're going to make me collateral damage and my productivity goes down. My happiness goes down. Stress level goes up. So we teach people how to do this, and the results they get are actually quite extraordinary. And it's such a blessing to be able to teach people how to discern. It's just not being taught today. Who should, it's like a couple of days ago, I did an interview and the guy goes, wow, this is really great stuff. Someone said, I read a book. He was telling me about a book actually. And he said, the book said I should have 5 good people around me. I said, you're right. You're absolutely right. You should.
Yeah.
Question
You're
for
the
you.
sum of the 5 people you hang out with the most.
Exactly.
But
so I asked him
how
one
do you
question.
find the good ones?
That was the question.
Yeah.
I said, which 5? Which 5? And he looked at me and I'm staring at these little orphan Annie eyes right in the middle. I said, did you get my point? No one's teaching you how to decide which 5. How do you discern and what that will do to your productivity? We have a saying at Givers University: givers earn 3 times more because givers discern 3 times more. So what do we teach? We teach discernment. We teach how to discern in your relationships. Now, and we teach people how, what are the things you actually look for? What are the things you do? In the first course, givers definitely think differently than takers, and we identify that. Second course, we have with our 30 habits of givers and the 30 habits of takers. These are the actual habits you will watch them do over and over again to help in your discerning. And in the third course, we talk about the 6 virtual prisons that people walk around in, and they don't even realize they're in these virtual prisons all day long. So as a result of that, we teach this by virtue of checklists, online training, and courses. And we want to share some of these things. We want to give them to your listeners. And we want to give them to your listeners because we know these checklists will have an impact on their life. And well, our name is Givers University. So that's, we got to live up to our name, right? So, but I can share with your listeners, it's real simple. They simply go to our website, giversuniversity.com. It's plural. And we're actually in the middle of, it'll be done in about less than 2 weeks, a huge update on our website. They go there now. There's a lot of information. They can see it and read it. I think the sign up for the newsletter has actually already been moved to the new website, just hasn't been published yet. So if they don't see it, hang out, in a week or two, it'll be back. When they sign up for our newsletter, it's absolutely free. We do not pelt their email. I just hate that. I sign up for something. Next thing you know, I'm getting 6 emails a day and then unsubscribe.
I just had that.
Yeah. So we send them 1 email a week every Thursday. They get great tools, really good, helpful things they can add in their relationship toolbox that are going to help them in their discerning with their relationships once a week. So when they sign up for our newsletter, it's absolutely free. They'll get an email that confirms, do you want to talk with these people? You have to respond back because we don't spam people. And then immediately they're going to get their first checklist free that is called the 6 arrows that takers shoot at givers. Then after that, a couple days later, they're going to get another freebie. That's the 25 do's. It's one of my favorite checklists. It's a 2-page checklist that actually identifies the actual deeds. And we want people print it off, put it in your pocket, learn these things to observe because they're going to impact your life in a huge way with current relationships you have that you may want to supplant over time, or new relationships coming in. And then once a week thereafter, every Thursday, they're going to get a nice, comfortable, email with tools that are going to help them in their life. And they'll learn about Givers University and contact, ways to contact us if they want to, et cetera. We're nurturers in relationship. We believe in investing in relationships, and those that see the benefits, then we love to be able to share more with them. Now, some of your listeners may be thinking a thing. This all sounds really good, but I've got a family member who lately's been a little more takerish than they should be.
I think everybody has those.
They need to hear about this. But I don't want to broach it to them because I don't want to hurt their feelings. I love them. I care for them. I don't want to hurt, but it needs to be discussed. They're doing this. What should they do? I'll give them the answer right now. They should share a great podcast called Fox Talks Business. And here's why. It's a great third party. In other words, all they have to do is simply say, you know what? I heard this really thought-provoking podcast. It was really different. They were talking about things, not your usual kind of podcast. It was really provoked some thought. Do me a favor, listen to it and tell me what you think of it. You never know, because you were a giver and shared Fox Talks Business with them. Their mind may open, and they may become a little less takerish and a little more giverish, and you may be stamping out one less fire in your life. So I recommend share this podcast with other people. Share Tanya's podcast. Follow her. Listen, it's great mentoring. And I can share with you that mentoring was one of the most significant blessings I had in my life, to be able to not be afraid to ask, wow, that's really interesting. Could you teach me about that? In a very humble way, and being able to. And I got to share with you, I fought my ego. There was one time my ego actually had to leave my body. There wasn't room for both of us. There wasn't, so, and shortly thereafter, you get the humbling experience that brings me right down to where I needed to be, back to the beginning, right? And these are great blessings in life as we look back at them fondly. And I pray that we've shared some really good nuggets with your listeners and added value. Go to the newsletter, sign up, get these great benefits, because you're going to learn something, and it's a skill. This is a skill. Relationship discerning is a skill that's not being taught, that can be taught, that will significantly impact your life, because what else will you have other than relationships in your life long term?
Yeah.
And let's discern them. Let's make sure we have the right ones with us.
I really liked the 7-question quiz that you had on your site too, because I did take that, and I found what it did for me is open my eyes, and more so because you were talking about family members, that sometimes you get so used to them being around and that sort of situation that you forget to sort of take that step back and go, boy, if this was happening to somebody else, I would be like, you need to stop that.
Yeah, that's exactly
That's
right.
not a good relationship, right?
You'd call them on it.
Right. So, I would suggest that people go and take that quiz as well, because that was a bit of an eye opener that I needed. I got a 14 on it.
Awesome. Good job. I'm not surprised, by the way. And to go do the quiz, they would just simply go to giversuniversity.info, INFO. Instead of .com is our website, .info is the quiz. And as Tanya mentioned, when you go there, you're actually on the first question of the quiz. And at the end of it's 7 questions, literally 4 or 5 minutes at the most. You get an assessment, and then you are also into that same, like you would if you joined our newsletter. So you get the updates and the downloads. We want everyone to have those. So thank you for mentioning that. And in conclusion, if I could, I'd like to share something which was one of the most profound things I'd like to share with your listeners. My business mentor talked me into saying these 3 things to myself every day. And I can share with you, they had a profound impact on me, and I pray they have an impact on your listeners as well. And I repeated them, and I've repeated these for decades and decades to myself every single day. And it helped me get through the obstacles. It helped me get through the temporary defeats. It helped me through so many different parts of my life. And the mindset that it helped me create, and being able to reframe events in my life. And these 3 things were as follows: I will never give up, I will keep rising up, and I will always overcome.
I love that. I'm actually writing it down.
Great.
Well, thank you so much. There's so much information. There's so many great, videos on your YouTube channel. We're going to have all of the links where people can find that, the website, as well as the quiz. And I want to know what people are getting on their quiz for that. So we'll make sure that we have all of the links to where people can access you and find more about you. So tell us, what's coming up for you? Do you have anything that you're working on right now that we need to keep our eye on?
Well, that's a great question. Thank you for asking me. Actually, my goal was to do 100 interviews from April, and I'm pushing 90 right now. So I'm probably, within the next week, I'll probably be there, right at there. And at that point, I'm going to transition into a new set of information. So I'm actually going to go back to all the hosts and say new info, and hopefully they'll let me on. But what we want to do is begin teaching people. These are the steps you do to build your own giver community around you. We want to teach people step by step. This is what you do. This is how you do. I mean, now that we've identified, the importance of discernment in relationships, and that takers are not always takers, that there are things they can do to become givers, and and we teach those things. But we want to get into the real, and I love to do the granular how-to, so that so many things are so innocuous and broad, and you think, man, how do I apply that stuff? And I like to keep asking, how do I do this? How do I do this? To where you can no longer ask that question, then we're there. We're where we need to be, right? And we want to begin teaching people how they build their own giver community around them. What's the step-by-step procedure you do? And to do interviews teaching people, this is what you do. This is how you build this community around you. And this is how it's going to impact your life in a positive way. So the first round of podcast interviews was to just identify the importance of discerning. And I got to say, I've been very blessed with super duper positive feedback. And now the next step is we want to teach them, how do you do it? Build the right community around yourself, watch how your happiness skyrockets. Watch how your stress level plummets. Watch how, your energy is so much more dynamic every day because you have the right people around you. But how do you do that? It's just, we don't want to do innocuous. So step by step, here's step 1, here's step 2, here's step 3. This is how you build your own community around you to have the best life you can ever have. That's the next thing on the agenda.
That's awesome. Well, people will just have to keep tuning in until we have you back on the show. So
you got that right.
They'll just have to make sure that they subscribe everywhere so that they can know when you're back on, so that they can have those steps. EA, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for spending time with me and sharing your stories and your knowledge and your fantastic puns.
Thank you.
Which are a favorite of mine.
Yes, I appreciate that. I appreciate that you enjoy the punishment.
Yeah.
That's like a double pun. Wow, that was crazy. That was just crazy right there. That
was
perfect. Tanya, you are awesome. Thank you so much for your wonderful podcast. And thank you for all you do for other people. And thank you for being you.
Such a great episode with EA. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing all of your information with us. Don't forget to head over to foxtalksbusiness.ca. Just click on blogs on the left-hand side of the page. You will see this episode and all of the links that you can connect with EA and Givers University. If you could take just a few moments of your time to also leave us a review wherever you like listening to our podcast, it helps us to reach more people, and we love hearing all of the great stuff you guys have to say. We also love getting emails and DMs from you guys on guests and topics you want to hear about, so keep those coming in. We love hearing them all. So no matter what you're doing today, whether you're trying to decide giver or taker, make sure that you find time to have fun, because as I always say, if you're not having fun, why are you doing it?